Hello, my name is GlitchWitch.JPG, and I typically talk about internet horror, analog horror, digital horror, creepypastas, internet urban legends, ARGs, but sometimes I talk about other things like horror movies and horror video games. And today, I am breaking the norm to talk about a straight up horror movie because somebody needs to say something. I saw the Justin Tipping horror film Him yesterday in theaters, and I have been excited for this film since I saw the trailer for it. Very well edited, eye-catching trailer. I am not a football fan, but I'm a horror fan. I will pretty much see any horror movie that comes out. I have AMC A-list. I live in a small town with not much to do, so, I go to the movies at least once a weekend, pretty much. And this weekend, top of my list was Him. I had been really looking forward to it. Him, if you are not familiar, what this film is, it is the story of a up-and-coming rising star quarterback who suffers a head injury, and his chances at the draft are kind of shot because of how he reacts after the head injury and how he behaves and stuff, but he gets a chance to train with his biggest hero quarterback who is in talks to potentially retire. So it's kind of like a potential passing of the baton, and the movie is kind of what ensues in this week-long training session between the up-and-coming quarterback and the GOAT quarterback. I'm not a football person. I'm vaguely familiar with basic tenets of football because both of my parents love football. This is the only football related thing I have in my house. It's from my dad because he went to Michigan State. So my mom and my dad are big Michigan State Spartans fans. So I've always been more familiar with college football because of my parents. And my grandpa also is a huge Notre Dame football fan, so definitely college football has always been more what I'm aware of. The football of it all was not what drew me to this movie, but it just looked like a unique horror film, so I was interested. And it is produced by Jordan Peele, and I think that I'm going to talk about that more later, because I think that is a big part of conversation around this movie, period. But anyway, they kept showing the trailer. I was always super hyped every time I saw the trailer. I just thought it looked really cool. So this week, review embargoes lifted, and all of a sudden, it was being ripped apart. Kind of mercilessly. I was like, whoa! It's been the biggest, review bomb situation I've seen since Hurry Up Tomorrow, the Weekend film that came out earlier in the year. I really liked Hurry Up Tomorrow. It's a very silly movie, and I absolutely understand why people ripped that movie apart. It's a very vapid, self-involved kind of jerk-off fest for The Weeknd. And I enjoy that about him. I'm very much one of those people that's we want pop stars to behave like pop stars, but then when they behave like pop stars, we get upset at them. I kind of love that he's a diva. It's ridiculous. It's annoying. He's an okay actor. There's some very pretty, shots and stuff in that movie, but it is, there was one where I'm like, man, I had a blast, but I absolutely get where critics and just general moviegoers are coming from, that they didn't really like that.
I hope you able,
Shut
but you're
the
not
fuck up! Shut the fuck up! Shut up! What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing?
I was going into Him expecting a similar situation where I was like, okay, it's gonna be pretty, a well-shot, cool-looking horror movie, but it's gonna be Hurry Up Tomorrow, where, hey, I like this thing, but I absolutely get why, the arguments of why it's bad. That's not what happened for me. I went and saw this movie yesterday with my husband and two of my friends, and my husband and I kept leaning over to each other and being like, this is good. Not oh, it's better than I thought it was gonna be. No, this is a very good movie. I don't think I have ever walked out of a film so puzzled by the general public's reaction and critics' reaction to a movie in my life. I loved this movie. It's tied for top movie of the year for me. And, I'm definitely a person that typically, I'm an easy to please person. I'm that person on Letterboxd that it's more likely that you're gonna get a 3.5, 4, or 5 range out of me. Almost, I would say a 3 is more scathing from me, because that means you were mediocre and I forgot about you. If you get a 1 from me, at least you pissed me off, right? That's the kind of film aficionado that I am. And there is a difference, though, between, oh, GlitchWitch is easy to please, this is a shitty movie that GlitchWitch liked, which is like a hurry up tomorrow, and oh, this is a really well-made horror film and I loved it, and I assumed, like, if I had gone into him and not read a single review, I would have walked out and been like, oh, so this is the substance of this year, right? I know I should have come in this with like a structure and a game plan, but I really kind of just want to explain why I think it's a good movie and why I'm confused about some of the biggest critiques, I guess. And I'm going to say this is a full spoiler. We're going from here on out. If you have not seen this movie and you want to and you don't want it spoiled for you, I would click off, go watch it, and come back. I will say I don't think that this is like a twist and turns movie. I think certain things, how they played out, I didn't expect. But the plot in general is kind of exactly what I thought it was going to be, and I'm not mad at it at all because I think it executed it perfectly. Essentially, what occurs in this movie is our main character, Cam, who is played by Tyreek Withers, he, from a young age, was pushed towards football by his father, by his entire family. He got really good at it. He's like destined to become the next greatest player of all time. And the current greatest player of all time is Isaiah White, played by Marlon Wayans, who I will get into Marlon Wayans later because me, if this isn't the performance of the year, I'm gonna say it. I feel crazy because I feel like people aren't agreeing, but it just is not even a question to me. Isaiah plays for the San Antonio Saviors, which is like the team that Cam's family is just obsessive about. They literally have an altar dedicated to the Saviors. Is it absolutely ridiculous that this cult, this football team with a cult-like following is called the Saviors? Yes, it's funny as... It's great, it's genius, it's funny. Like, it doesn't have to be subtle. Horror is great when it's not subtle. It's great when it is subtle, but sometimes you just need to hit me over the head the same way that I'll follow the next beat. Cam gets a hit over the head by a freaky-ass mascot thing, which results in him getting a major head injury, and that puts him in a weird place for the draft. I don't understand the intricacies of the football draft, but essentially he can't show out at the draft. But his manager, played by Tim Heidecker, also great performance that I was just like, what is Tim Heidecker doing in this movie? Essentially offers him the opportunity to train with Isaiah White for a week, to try to get it in because Isaiah is retiring and they want the Saviors to have an equally good player. So it's essentially like this endurance test to see, can he handle it? And he goes there and things are just weird. It's weird. The vibes are weird. It's like a brutalist compound in the middle of the desert. He walks in, and in the first interaction he has with Isaiah's like skinning an animal. The vibes are just strange, and I love it. It's ridiculous and over the top, and like, I don't know if you're already clocking where this is going, but I'll wait till we get to the end, I guess, in case you aren't. But essentially, they go through all these very rigorous training things. The film is broken up by each day that they go through, and like the thing that they're testing each day, which I think is fun. I love when there's a title in a movie. Maybe it's because I'm a graphic designer and you give me a cool title and I'm like, ooh, but I think it's fun to break movies up like that. Things get weirder and weirder. It starts just like, oh, this is weird rich people shit, and then it devolves into, oh, this is like esoteric, occult, weird rich people shit. I love horror movies. I'm sorry, the sentence I'm about to say. Essentially, there has been a long line of hand-picked groomed, they quite literally use the term groomed, quarterbacks for the Saviors dating back and back and back. And it's essentially insinuated that it is like the blood of the devil that is allowing these players to perform at such peak capacity. And it's like, you know, a way for the devil to be doing his bidding on Earth. You know, it's a cult following, it's a false idol, right? They're essentially giving him an out if he can't handle it, if he can't fully devote himself to this task, I guess, this role, this duty. And he and Isaiah have to fight to see who will maintain, you know, being him. Being the goat, which, yes, the goat, the devil, it is ham-fisted, but that's great horror to me. I love it. It's silly and ridiculous, but it's very effective. Cam does successfully beat Isaiah, goes out and is able to, you know, he has to sign his name, sign the deal with the devil, but he does not. And he proceeds to kill all of the owners and you know, higher ups of the Saviors. And that's just kind of how the movie ends, but it almost seems like he has this weird like agreement with the devil. I don't know. It ends very vague, which I'm fine with. So there are a lot of things that this movie is commentating on, and I don't think it's commentating on them in a elevated trauma response horror way. I like elevated horror. And when I say elevated horror, I mean, you know, your Hereditaries, your Babadooks, your Weapons, I guess. I don't even know. Weapons, I almost would say, is like post-elevated horror. Things like that, though. The like trauma horror as a stand-in for, you know, depression and mental health issues and things like that. This movie is not that. And you can be a horror movie and deal with sensitive, huge societal issues without being elevated horror. It's why horror has been such a successful, beloved genre from the get. Horror has always dealt with very serious issues in often very over-the-top ways. So some of the things that this movie is absolutely commentating on are the way that football players are treated and, you know, kind of just like animals almost. They're being used for entertainment the same way that, you know, you could say like actors and actresses are sometimes, or anyone that's in the spotlight. They're being used by people above them. And further from that, just the health risks of playing football. Like, we know there have been studies that the traumatic head injury, the CTE that football players go through, is not good. Like they literally say in the movie, human skulls aren't designed to hit each other. Go figure. And, you know, there's not a lot of concrete scientific research into it because you have to do post-mortem on people with CTE to truly understand how much it has affected them. So there's a lot to still be learned, but it is clearly a problem. And I think this movie is dealing with that. I've seen criticism from critics that it's not discussing that in like a respectful or poignant way. I disagree with that. I will get into that more later. It is also dealing with racism, which is not something I'm entirely comfortable being the person to pass judgment on how good or bad this movie handles it, because it is not something I've ever experienced as a white woman. But it's clearly trying to say something about race and, you know, the disparity of, you know, at one point, Marlon Wayne's character says, like, as a black quarterback, I had to be great to even be good. That is something that the movie is touching on for sure. I think it's dealing with toxic masculinity. I think it's dealing with how cruel and sadistic, like, fandom and fan culture can be. In this instance, it's specifically sports, but you can apply that to literally anything. I think that there's a lot being said here, and I think it does a pretty good job with most of those things. So one of the main criticisms I keep seeing is that it's like vapid and it's not examining any of these, you know, social issues, I guess, for lack of a better term, with reverence or care. And the thing that I keep going back to when I see that is people love the hell out of The Substance. I'm people. I loved that movie. That was one of my favorite movies last year. And everything I'm about to say is not me dissing The Substance. It's me pointing out a double standard. The Substance is a really cool, stylized, awesome movie that deals with, critiquing how society treats women as they age. In that movie, the main character, Elizabeth Sparkle, played by Demi Moore, gets this opportunity to turn into a younger version of herself, or create a younger version of herself. She's an actress. She loses her main gig because, she's told she's getting too old, despite the fact that she is obviously a very beautiful, drop-dead gorgeous, incredible-looking woman. She gets this product called The Substance, and she essentially births a younger, hotter, more perfect version of herself, played by Margaret Qualley. They get into this tug of war because they're supposed to remember that they are one, but they start to battle it out as two separate entities, and obviously the horror ensues from that. Now, I think that movie does a really good job at that handling that subject matter, but I would say that it's just as shallow of a take on that as him is on, fanatic culture and how football players are treated. The only thing is, I think people don't want to take football seriously. Like, I don't know if it's like film fans or like, I don't like sports. I don't give a shit about sports, but I know it's bad. I'm attentive enough to understand that, the culture around it is not great all the time. I just don't I don't understand why one is good, because it's a more, I guess, and I feel weird, especially as a woman saying this, but an acceptable social issue versus an unacceptable social issue. I think in general, we struggle with wanting to take men's traumas and mental and even sometimes physical well-being into account in, popular culture these days. In this case, we're not just dealing with men, you're dealing with men of color, you're dealing with varying socioeconomic backgrounds and stuff like that. So it's just one of those things where I don't know, because it's not I would say, if we're going off of, target audience or whatever, I'm not necessarily the target audience for a movie like him, because I'm not, I'm not into football, I'm not a football fan, I'm not a football player, I'm a woman, things like that. I can't necessarily relate to anything the characters are going through, but I can understand it, and I can think it's I think it's fascinating. I think it's really a clever angle for horror. I haven't seen sports horror like this personally really ever, I don't think. It is horrific because it is, such a huge part of especially our American culture. We're not stopping to think of these dudes as actual human beings sometimes. I even look at the whole Taylor Swift Travis Kelce thing, and the way that people talk about him he's I don't know, her pet almost. He just is there. He's just this weird, almost Ken doll. And it's just strange. The culture around it is strange. Tom Brady doesn't feel like a person to me. He's this weird other thing. And, I would say we treat actors and actresses very similarly. And you look at, how child actors are treated. And that's a huge thing, and that's a huge topic of discussion. Well, these athletes go through exactly the same thing. I mean, you start athletes on this scale, the way that, Cam's character is, from a very young age. They don't know anything else. They're put through the damn ringer for other people's dreams. Parents are living vicariously through their kids. It's a lot of pressure on, a 15-year-old to play football good enough to get a scholarship to then maybe, if they're lucky, play in the big leagues and then support their family forever. That's a lot of pressure and puts kids through a shit ton of turmoil and trauma that I think is a very interesting thing to discuss in horror. I think it's cool the way this movie handles it too, because it doesn't feel like your normal trauma horror. It feels almost like an exploitation movie. That's the thing I keep turning back to is, you know, it reminds me of, as far as like recent movies go, it does remind me of The Substance a lot, the way it was edited, but it also reminds me of Rob Zombie's Lords of Salem, which is a very much a love letter to like 70s psychedelic crazy horror. And I saw a review somewhere that described him as Ken Russell's Friday Night Lights. And that's like nail on the head to me. If you're not familiar, Ken Russell directed a lot of great movies. He did The Devils, he did Listomania is a movie that I would compare in its wackiness. He did Tommy, he did Altered States, which is a movie I would actually compare a lot to him. I think Altered States, which is a movie about like how submersing yourself in the sensory deprivation tanks can like fuck with your mind. I think that that's more the vibe I get, and I don't know if modern horror audiences that are maybe getting really used to like Jordan Peele and Ari Aster and Robert Eggers are just not used to the kind of like over the top psychedelic almost exploitation vibes, and so it feels jarring. And I keep seeing the phrase like style over substance, style over substance. I don't think it is style over substance. I think that Weekend movie I was talking about earlier, Hurry Up Tomorrow, that's a movie that's style over substance. I don't know what the fuck that movie's saying other than it's hard to be The Weekend, which, okay, buddy. Him is hitting you over the head and overloading your senses so that you can feel almost how Cam feels. It's putting you through that torment and kind of visual assault because he doesn't quite know what's going on. And I saw another critic say that he doesn't have a personality, and that's one of the reasons the movie suffers, because Tyreek Withers didn't do a good performance and Cam doesn't really have a personality. I disagree with that. Cam's not allowed to have a personality. He has literally been molded into this perfect little athletic freak to be exactly who they want him to be. He's not allowed to have his own thoughts. He didn't know that. But his whole life has just been football, football, football. He has literally been molded into this moment. So him not having a personality is part of the plan, right? And it's interesting because when you compare him to Isaiah almost, it's like he has gotten a personality, and that's almost hurt him. You know what I mean? He's thought too much. He's spent too much time in this role that he's almost grown beyond it. And I bet that the owner of the team finds that to be a threat. And I almost wonder, like, I'm very curious what the relationship between like this demonic entity that I'm just gonna say is Satan is with the owner of the team. I almost wonder if Satan wanted Cam to do everything he did, and it's kind of giving him more power, like breaking the cycle and giving him more freedom. That's kind of how I felt by the end of the movie. But I love the relationship between Cam and Isaiah is just very interesting to see. And Marlon Wayans is incredible in this movie. Being, famous for being such a comedic actor, I know he's done some dramatic roles like Requiem for a Dream and stuff. He is so good in this movie. He is frightening. You cannot take your eyes off of him in every scene he's in, and you're drawn in. He's so charismatic, but he's so off-putting, and you just to as you learn more and more about what he has been through and how he has gone through everything that Cam has gone through, but on a much longer trajectory. It's just fascinating. Like, I think it's it's one of my favorite characters probably of the year, and like I said, I think probably my favorite performance of the year. It's just like incredible stuff, and I hate that he's probably not going to get the credit he deserves because people are ripping on this movie, and because he comes from a comedy background. I feel like it's often harder for people to take comedic actors seriously, especially when they jump from genre to genre, right? If he jumps right into a drama, people might respect that more. Like you look at like Dwayne The Rock Johnson is doing The Smashing Machine coming out soon, that is like a traditional sports drama rather than a sports horror like this. So he's probably going to get a lot more credit, even if their performances are kind of equally matched, because people don't respect comedy, and they also don't really respect horror. So you're jumping from one sinking ship to the other as far as like being taken seriously as an actor. But he absolutely should get all the praise in the world because it is just a really commanding performance. Like I was kind of blown away. The last thing I really want to talk about, that like if you are familiar with my channel, which I don't know, I may have a lot of random people watching this video because this is a, you know, a hotter topic. This may not be just my normal viewers, but for anyone that does normally watch my videos, I love religious horror. It's kind of my bread and butter. There's a lot of religious horror within internet horror, and I'm kind of a sucker for it. So it's very much like if there's religious horror at all, my box is checked. I'm very much one of those people. But I really like the religious allegories in this. Like, yes, it's the false antichrist figure of Cam is very interesting to me. Like, yes, it seems obvious to have, you know, oh, it's a, you know, football is a cult, fandom is a cult. Like, yes, that is an idea that's been discussed before, but I haven't seen it in a movie like this. I think, you know, just because something exists doesn't mean you can't play with it in a new way. The devil's been in movies for years. He's gonna keep being in movies. And that's really, at the end of the day, what I love about this movie, and it's how I felt about Longlegs last year as well. We're back to just the devil being a bad guy in horror films, and I think that's awesome. It's not the devil is a stand-in for so-and-so. No, it's just the devil, baby. And I love that. Like, that's the ultimate evil, right? If we're just going off of tale as old as time stuff, you know, The Exorcist, it's the goddamn devil. And that's scary. The Omen, that's scary. It's old school, you know, back to basics horror, and it's so fun, and you don't need an answer to every question. That's what I loved about Longlegs. It didn't over-explain itself. It just is. And I very much feel the same way about, you know, the religious stuff in him. I don't need to know how this started. I just need to know that it's happening. They gave me enough that I understood. I genuinely, from the trailer, assumed the devil was going to be involved in this movie, with it being called him, with, you know, just the clear kind of occult vibes from the trailer. Just was a little obvious to me, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm not mad at that at all. But I think it was done in a really interesting way, and I think it wasn't, I personally don't think it was too forced. I think they did a good job of slowly releasing information throughout the film until you got to a point where you're like, okay, yeah, this is magic and occult and crazy. It almost feels like a 70s, like 80s satanic panic style movie, and that's not me condoning the satanic panic as a concept. It's a very damaging time, but, you know, it's just interesting to see because we don't see movies like that anymore. We don't see the schlock unless it's like manufactured schlock. Like, I saw The Toxic Avenger recently, the remake of The Toxic Avenger, and I really liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was very sweet and sincere, but that has like manufactured schlock because it's a remake of a trauma movie. You don't get the genuine, for the love of the game, ridiculous that often anymore. And that's what is so exciting to me about some of these newer horror directors. Like, I think that Osgood Perkins has that. I think that Zach Cregger has that. Weapons has some of that to me. Just really bold, cool, innovative ideas shown in a way that you wouldn't expect. And it's probably because I come from internet horror. You know, I'm a creepypasta lover, so I love a zany, off-the-wall story like this. I would rather have something crazy and weird than, you know, another Insidious movie. That's just me. That's how I am. And that's not me dissing the Insidious movies or the Conjuring movies or whatever. They're fine, but I think we need to have both. And horror has always been such an awesome and innovative genre because we can tell stories that are otherwise not going to be easy to communicate. You know, you couldn't have told this story in this, like, you can make a drama about CTE and it'll probably win Oscars, but I'm going to forget about it. You know what I mean? It's not going to drill into my brain some of the imagery from this movie that's never going to leave my head. And it's going to keep me thinking about this topic and this subject matter. I had a great time, and I don't understand people who say that it made no sense. Like, I really don't. I think it makes a lot of sense. Yes, I agree that maybe the allegories are obvious, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I'm a huge fan of the Darren Aronofsky movie Mother, which is another movie that has like very obvious religious symbolism, and I think that movie's great. And I love it. And I love the obvious religious symbolism. I mean, sometimes it's okay to not be subtle. Horror, historically, I think I already said this earlier, has not been subtle. And if you really want to be a literalist, I think that this movie can have a literalist reading too. I think you can argue that this entire movie, all of the events of this movie, are just Cam hallucinating because he has a traumatic brain injury and it is f***ing with him. We have seen, unfortunately, real examples of people with CTE harming others. Aaron Hernandez. I mean, it's a horrible story. If you're not familiar with Aaron Hernandez, there are plenty of resources out there. I can't get into it, but he had CTE and he did... he's a killer. He killed people. So you could argue that all of this was a delusion from Cam after he had a traumatic head injury and he just snapped and like killed the head of the football team, the owner of the football team, the day that he was signing. And everything else is just him making it up. Do I think that's a cop-out and kind of boring and I want it to be literally the devil? Yes. But that's my argument for anyone bitching about it being too fantastical and weird. And I think that's cool. I love a movie that can be read every which way, right? That's what makes movies so fun, is being able to interpret them in your own way. So all this to say, go see this movie. Go see it 5 times. I want to go see it again. I loved it. I think it's gonna be a cult classic. I know people are clowning on Marlon Wayans for tweeting like, the critics don't get me, this is gonna be a cult classic. I fear he's right. I fear it will be. I really am so confused by the harsh feelings, and I didn't bring up the Jordan Peele of it all. I think people got confused, a lot of people, and thought because it said that Jordan Peele was producing it, that it was gonna be like a Jordan Peele movie. No, that's not how producing works. He just gave them money and put monkey paw in front of it. So that it would get attention, which it did, but clearly in a way that backfired. And I'll level with you, like, I love Jordan Peele's movies. I liked this movie better than, like, Us, personally. Like, I like Nope and Get Out better than it, because I think those are, like, 2 of the best horror movies ever made, but I really liked this. But it's not a Jordan Peele movie. It's not gonna be, because it's not directed by him. It's not written by him. It's produced by him. He just saw this story and wanted to give it a platform, which I think is awesome. And I feel like people were very similar when the Candyman remake came out, because he was attached to that as a producer, and they were like, it's not like a Jordan Peele movie. It's like, well, he didn't direct it. No, that was a Nia DaCosta movie. Another movie I love to death. I love original Candyman, and I love the Candyman remake so much. Oh my god, such a good movie. God, I loved this movie. Like, I really want to go see it again. I definitely will. It's gonna be in my top 5 of the year, probably, without a doubt. I loved it. So let me know what you think, and if you disagree and you don't like it, that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying you have to like the movie, but the general panning of it is just very confusing to me, and I worry that it's gonna prevent people from going to see it. And that, I think, is not fair. It's fine for you to say, hey, I don't like this movie, XYZ, but I want to get a positive review out there, because I think there has to be other people that feel the same way I do. And I've seen positive reviews on, like, Letterboxd and things like that, and even just, around on Twitter, but it's just, it's crazy. I feel crazy, because I feel like I watched a completely different movie than everyone else did. So let me know what you thought of this movie. I personally can't wait to see whatever Justin Tipping does next, because what a picture. I'm not going to make a habit of regularly turning this channel into a movie review channel. It's really only instances like this where I think it's kind of a unique take on horror, in this case kind of harkening back to an older era of horror, or just it needs to be talked about. The next movie that I will absolutely review on this channel is Shelby Oaks, because that is based off a internet horror ARG called Paranormal Paranoids, directed by YouTube legend Chris Stuckman, and that just premiered, like, the new cut of it just premiered at a festival. It might have been Fantastic Fest, I'm not sure. It was receiving very good reviews. A lot of people were saying it was really innovative and like interesting uses of found footage. So I'm so excited for Shelby Oaks. That comes out at the end of this month. It was originally supposed to come out October 8th, but it's been pushed to the end of the month, closer to Halloween. It might actually be Halloween. It's either the week before Halloween or Halloween. But I'm super excited for that movie. Cannot wait for it. I made a video breaking down the history of Paranormal and Paranoids and the entire timeline of Shelby Oaks being made as a film. Check that out if you're interested in Shelby Oaks. Thank you so much for watching. I'd like to thank my YouTube members. I have the Creepypasta OCs up on screen. And then in Survival Horror Emo, we have E-Rob and So-Called Punk. And in Analog Horror Scary Face, we have Kira Coffer, Alvacan, and Charlotte Sabina. Thank you so much to my members for being members. If you would like to be a member, there's a little join button down below. You know, just liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing means the world. And yeah, tell me what some of your favorite horror movies this year have been. It's been a really good year for horror. Lots of different stuff. For me right now, my 3 favorite movies of the year are Him, Weapons, and 28 Years Later. I love 28 Years Later. And those 3 movies are so different. And that's what's so cool about how diverse horror has been this year. It's super exciting, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the year is holding, because there's a lot of good horror movies coming out the rest of the year. So thank you so much for watching. You know, don't bash your skull against someone else's skull. That's all I can suggest. Bye!